Well, I began my working life at Air Canada as a ticket agent. I got hired because I had done a degree in French Lit and they wanted somebody who spoke French. So I started working there and got active in my union. It was a period of a lot of uncertainty, deregulation, privatization in the airline
70s,
industry.
early 80s.
Yeah, yeah, and it continued for some time, and eventually we merged with the CAW. I got appointed to staff and became a negotiator. Headed up our women's programs. I did a lot of leadership development with women, and got
That's a
involved in
big
a lot
change
of
from
other.
French literature.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm once I get interested in something, I tend to dig in. And I got very active in the union, did a lot of leadership education, became involved in collective bargaining, and I've certainly bargained in the airlines, but also in major private corporations, public entities like universities, and led first woman in North America on the labor side to lead auto bargaining, and then decided that a lot of the things that impacted communities, impacted the labor movement, impacted women, affected poverty, were really outside of the hands of communities. It needed electoral politics. It needed elected officials to act, and that was the frustration. So I decided to put myself forward as a candidate for the New Democratic Party.
Okay. Now, going back a little bit, what was there something in your childhood or education or development that motivated you towards social justice and workplace justice issues, or something that came on you as an adult?
Well, my family comes from a pretty modest background, and parents are both very, very hardworking, very modest background, and always very fair-minded. And my father especially always spoke up if he wasn't involved in politics or anything, but he always reacted to injustice. He believed in people getting a fair shake, but he wasn't ideological. He wasn't active in politics. But I think that that sense of something not being right and wanting to do something about it maybe comes from him. And my mom is always very engaged in the community. Both my parents were very
What
active.
town?
Pardon me?
In Toronto?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so moving on, then you've been involved in political life for some time. You've served before, right?
Yeah, I was
Oh, six.
elected in '06, defeated in '08, and then elected in 2011.
Had you run before '06? I can't recall.
Yeah, I ran in 2004 and came very close to winning, but was defeated. There was a swing at the last minute.
Hmm. And now you're finance critic.
Hmm.
What does that mean for you?
Well,
How has that adjustment been?
it's been really an exciting position to be in, because finance is all about how you collect money as a government and how you spend it. What are the spending priorities? And we're in a time of a lot of economic uncertainty, and government, this government seems bound and determined to keep shoveling money back into major corporations that are doing quite well, don't need any more money. They're sitting on $500 billion of cash. They don't need any more. They're not creating jobs, but the government's going down the path of giving them more tax cuts. And I was thrilled yesterday. We took one of my motions on jobs and the economy as an NDP opposition day motion. We got it passed unanimously. So even the government agreed that in a time of economic uncertainty, we should be investing in infrastructure, and we should be rewarding companies that actually create jobs and not just shoveling money back to companies that don't need it in the form of across-the-board corporate tax cuts. So we've been every day in the House of Commons hammering the government for action on jobs and the economy. And I think a lot of Canadians, what Canadians sent us here for, Canadians want action on jobs and the economy, and we're going to keep pressing the government to take action. And even though it's a majority government, I'm sure we're going to get action. We just keep pressing them on it.
Today, I think marks about the third week of the Occupy Wall Street protest.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a fascinating interview on my way into Ottawa this morning with John Samuelson, the president of the transit workers in New York City. I don't know if you heard that one.
No, I didn't.
But it seems to be come at an amazingly opportune time. And how do you relate to the Occupy Wall Street movement and what they're saying?
Well, there's incredible frustration amongst people, more so in the U.S., but here as well. The gap between rich and poor is escalating. Consumer debt's at an all-time high, student debt, housing debt, personal debt. And what people have seen, especially in the U.S., but now increasingly in Europe, is governments bailing out banks and that debt load being shoveled off onto the average person in the form of personal debt and reduced government services. So more money rewarding banks, i.e. investors, and less going into the services that people need. Lots of consumer goods out there, but a real shortage of people's ability to pay and a shortage of public services, good quality services that people can get access to. So I think governments, especially in the U.S., have been in gridlock, and yet people's lives are crumbling. They want their government to act. And to me, I would have loved to have heard that interview. To me, the occupation is born out of a sense of frustration and people wanting to just take matters into their own hands. It's actually quite destabilizing for the U.S., and I think those with a lot of wealth and power really ought to be concerned that they are the ones that are destabilizing U.S. society.
I look at the cuts that the Harper government is making and plans to make to public services here, and I think of the 20 and 30-year-olds that I know in my own community and family here in Canada, and the struggles they're having to get established with jobs and homes and families. I would think that there'd be a pretty fertile seedbed for that kind of protest here, or that kind of concern.
Well, inequality is growing here in Canada as well. You know, when I talk to parents, the incredible frustration that if they can find childcare, they practically have to take out a second mortgage to pay for it. Parents who are paying astronomical rents, often for not very good quality rental accommodation, and students that graduate with record levels of debt, and then they can't find a decent job to even start paying down that debt. So the frustration is high here, and this government now is determined to accelerate, not job creation, but accelerate deficit reduction. What does that mean? They want to take $4 billion out of the economy, cuts to services each and every year. It's ridiculous. They've announced 700 layoffs at Environment Canada. So when we have a crisis of climate change, what the government wants to do is lay off scientists and climate change analysts and people who are alerting us to an impending crisis. And these are the people we're putting out on the street.
It would seem like those kinds of actions would create receptive conditions for the NDP and for the kind of concern that the Occupy Wall Street people are talking about.
Well, we have been every single day in the House of Commons up on our feet in question period demanding action now. And this government thinks that maybe people aren't paying attention. They just kind of sleepwalk into another economic downturn, and that if they and their friends are doing well, maybe they don't have to do anything differently. But the vast majority of Canadians, first of all, who did not vote for this government, but secondly, know that Canada is not going in the right direction, that to keep cutting services, laying more people off is not the path to take. So we're going to keep pressing the government, and it's interesting they supported our motion yesterday, which is kind of surprising. But the real key is action. We'll see what they actually do.
Let's switch to the NDP and the leadership race. How come you're not in it yet?
Well, there's so much happening with the finance portfolio. It really has been occupying my time. Every day in the House, there's something happening on this, and we're pushing for action. And also, I've been very involved evenings and weekends, canvassing in the Ontario election. So I've been pretty busy with that, and I haven't made a final decision yet. I'm still thinking it
What's it
through.
going to take?
What's it going to
What
take?
are you looking for? What are you thinking about? What are your considerations?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking to people. Several people have encouraged me to run. A lot of my team that helped me get elected has been working in the Ontario campaign, and that's important that they make sure we've got really good, strong NDP representation at Queen's Park. So after that election's over, I'll be consulting with folks next week, and I'll make my decision. I part of it, frankly, is it's not a decision I thought I'd ever have to make. I mean, we all just assumed Jack would be here, and frankly, I've had a bit of trouble accepting that Jack isn't here. So it's very sad. We were all expecting Jack to be leading us in an opposition government, so exciting, and into the next election. So I'm thinking it through. I don't feel rushed to make a decision. I think it's very early days yet, and I know our party is a grassroots party, a lot of good activists across the country who want to see a good debate. They want to see a number of candidates. They want to see a good debate. It's a big opportunity for us to inspire Canadians to join the party, and for the candidates to have a good discussion about the direction of the party. And whether I'm in or I'm out, I think that will happen, and I'm really looking forward to it.
One last question. Tell me about the house that Jack built. What tell me the party that he left you with. Where are you going? Where as a party? Where do you think? Where do you think you need to go? What are we looking for in a leader?
Well, Jack inspired me to run. He recruited me, and he recruited most of our MPs. And you said yourself earlier, what an incredibly diverse group of MPs we have. And when I think about so many young activists who've been drawn into the party, inspired by Jack's leadership, it's very exciting, and it will define our party for decades going forward. What did Jack build? He built diversity, he built energy, he built action. It's not just enough to have good ideas, you actually have to act on them. He built respect and teamwork, and he impressed upon us the few times that we were able to meet together after the election. As a caucus, he impressed on us the importance of working together as a team. It wasn't just Jack Layton, it was a team in our caucus, and that we had to have respect for one another, and respect even for those in other political parties, because even when you oppose someone, there can sometimes be a grain of agreement on something where you can work together and get something done. And Jack was a master at that. As a negotiator, I know, that's my background, I know what he meant by that you can, you may not get everything you want, but you can find a way that you can make progress. And when, in all of the wonderful debate and discussion and remembrances after Jack's death, hearing people talk about the things that Jack was involved in, that even as a Torontonian, many of us didn't know about, that he was involved in building and designing the bike racks in the city of Toronto. I mean, we knew about the White Ribbon Campaign, so many things. And, it's that practicality. I think what frustrated me and motivated me to get involved in politics was there was a lot of talk and people saying they were going to do things, and they never did. We had majority liberal governments. They promised a lot, but they never actually followed through. And so Jack was always the master at the achievable. Have a big idea, but take those concrete, practical steps. And that, I think, will see us in good stead, because as long as we're working down the path of making progress and moving Canada forward, then I think Canadians will see, yeah, there's another way. We don't have to go back to the 1950s, which is where the Conservatives want to take us. We can go forward. And that inspiration, I think, I see it especially in the new MPs. And it's a difficult time for Canada. It's hardship for a lot of people. It's worry and insecurity for a lot of people. But it's also an exciting time and a time of opportunity. And I think we're at a pivotal moment